Welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. This evening, we've got brand new numbers, striking numbers that have never been seen before, and they may reshape how you think about illegal immigration. So you've heard the same line a million times. It's repeated like a mantra by the left during every debate on the subject. All immigrants are hardworking and law-abiding. They do jobs you wouldn't consider doing, and they do them cheerfully. They sacrifice for their families in ways you probably don't. In fact, and this is always the last point, it's always delivered with the confident satisfaction of someone shutting down a debate with superior data, undocumented immigrants actually commit fewer crimes on average than native-born Americans. Not only are immigrants more virtuous than you are, but they're safer to be around. In other words, stop complaining. They're your superiors. But wait, are we sure that that is true? Are people who are in this country precisely because they were willing to break our immigration laws really less likely to break other kinds of laws? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yet until today, strangely enough, no one could say for sure whether it was true, because reliable statistics didn't seem to exist. Our government tracks pretty much every trend and every phenomenon you can think of, from how many pounds of pistachio nuts are recalled every year to how many fifth graders are injured on swing sets, how many people die in bathtubs. This is a nation of record keepers. We're overseen by an army of spreadsheet-wielding bureaucrats. Numbers control our lives, except on this subject. Somehow, the government went for years without honestly trying to track the volume of crime committed by illegal immigrants in this country. Maybe they were too incompetent to do it. More likely, they didn't want you to know the answer or to think about it even. In any case, we now for the first time have the actual numbers, and here they are. According to statistics from the U.S. Sentencing Commission, non-citizens are actually far more likely to commit serious crimes than Americans are. Non-citizens account for 22%, more than a fifth, of all federal murder convictions, 18% of fraud convictions, 33% of money laundering convictions, 29% of drug trafficking convictions, and 72% of convictions for drug possession. Meanwhile, the non-citizen percentage of the American population, about 7%. So that is a massively disproportionate amount of crime, not even close. No, immigrants are not more law-abiding and less dangerous than Americans. That's totally untrue. Indeed, it's the opposite of the truth. Non-citizens are more likely to be arrested, convicted, and imprisoned for serious crimes than people who were born here. Much more likely. So why didn't we know this until now? Why have so many people been lying to us about this for so long? That's a question we plan to ask a whole bunch of people. Mark Steyn is an author and a columnist. He joins us tonight. Mark, are you surprised by these numbers?
No, I'm not, because I think it accords with most people's experience of the transformative effect of immigration. And it's logical, too, that when a first world country imports continuously a large, unskilled population into its country illegally, that is an act of law breaking at the conception. And there's no reason why they would then have any other respect for other laws. And to be honest, I mean, I found that last 5 minutes surreal, where your guest's main concern is that certain illegal immigrants are getting crimes committed against them by other illegal immigrants, and they're scared to go to the police. That's not what these statistics show. These statistics, which for political correctness reasons we were prevented from knowing in recent years, show that this country is in effect importing a criminal class, and it does not check any aspect of the criminal class it imports. Now, the few of us who have the misfortune to go through the legal immigration system, I went to see Neil at Homeland Security in Manchester, New Hampshire a couple of years ago, and he asked me about whether I'd committed any crimes, and I said I'd been pulled over by a traffic cop in Montpelier, Vermont, for passing a little old lady at 17 miles an hour, but I got the case dismissed. Neil from Homeland Security in in Manchester, New Hampshire, wanted to see proof that the state of Vermont had actually dismissed that complaint against me. So we have a bifurcated system here in which law-abiding people have to dot every I and cross every T, and every single day we import drug gangs, money launderers, murderers, drunk drivers, because the professional lobby group your previous guest represented somehow thinks this is in the interests of the United States. It's not at all.
The rector of my church spent the better part of a year waiting for a visa. He spent 20 years in the British Army. They didn't want any more Scottish Anglicans in this country because they're dangerous. Meanwhile, all of Congress is arguing about how we can keep people who snuck in illegally here, and you're a bigot if you're not for that. So what does this reduce? So, like, the key argument has always been that immigrants are better than we are. I mean, isn't that the argument you hear every day? Like, they commit fewer crimes than you do. They work harder. They're just better people. How dare you complain about them? Now that we know these crime rates are way higher than they are for American native-born, what's their argument now?
Well, Nancy Pelosi has said that we ought to thank the parents of the Dreamers for bringing them here because, as you say, they're better than us. If you listen to people like your previous guest, every single Dreamer is a high school valedictorian just wrapping up his third tour of Afghanistan. They're way better than us. So the only way to get the general depravity rate down in the United States is to import more and more low-skilled immigrants illegally across the Rio Grande. That's the argument Jorge Ramos makes. Oh, no, you're much safer being in a town of illegal immigrants than you are in a town whose population got off the Mayflower. And the fact of the matter is this is absolutely the inverse of the truth. The statistics you cited, even taken as a whole, 94% of these non-citizen criminals in federal custody. And by the way, this is just the tip of the iceberg because 90% of incarceration is at the state and local level. But the proportions show that about 94% of these non-citizen criminals in U.S. federal prison are illegal immigrants. Why does any country need to import a criminal class? If that is one of the jobs that Americans will do. Americans are happy to murder and rape and sell drugs to each other. You don't need to import other people to do that.
Yeah. Well, one job that Americans are less interested in is voting Democrat, and these are people who will do that. So that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point of the whole thing.